Did you hear that?
Yeah.
She always tells you that it's recording in progress.
No, but that might be an update because
I was like, who's this? Who's this lady in my ear?
no, because our meetings for work do that too. So.
Well, hello, Veronica. Welcome to the Choppin podcast.
Hello, world. Yeah, I'm in my bag today. You know what I'm saying? Chopping episode whatever.
I believe 6, but I'm not. Who keeping track these days? You know what I mean?
Oh shit.
I gotta hide this minifigure. I don't know if you could see it. You could, because it might be directing a new episode of Halo vs. Star Wars. Personal plug. Check my YouTube channel for that. But the thing that we've talked about on I don't want to say it on the podcast because people could be listening. Spoilers, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna keep him over here.
We've got some big shit coming to the network, so please stay tuned.
That we do. Stay tuned for updates. And you like my PUBG Battlegrounds t-shirt? I mean, I know you're not much of a gamer. This game used to slap back in the day, low key.
But yeah.
What were we talking about off air? So you said, hey, Quest, or you call me Cave. Most people know me as Quest. Are you a war fan? You said. And I said, unfortunately, I am a war fan. What war are you a fan of?
Well, I think I said, are you a history buff?
Same shit. Yeah. And I said, unfortunately, I really like World War II. Wish it never happened. But you said not World War One. And then I was like, there's some intriguing moments of it. But when you brought up trench warfare, can you imagine being a soldier and getting what was it? Like in your boot, you're wearing trench foot. Just having to just chill in a trench and like barely moving. Like it's a victory in a month if you get from one trench to another. Like we really fought like that.
Yo, so let's just stop. Not stop, but let's take a little break and talk about today and modern technology compared to back then. So I'm a big history buff. For those of y'all don't know, my first major was history, but then I came to the realization can't really do shit with that.
Literally nothing with it, but except
no, at all. Unless I had a PhD in it and decided to teach or some shit, but I was like, nah. So and I'm switching my major to chemistry, but I do find it fascinating. That neither here nor there. So how in modern day, modern combat, modern warfare, how it's, how we go about shit. And I don't know shit about, I don't know anything about the army or shit like that. But what I do know is just some of the shit they say on the news and how we're able to bomb places with a drone and we be miles away and that shit happens. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so just the type of machinery that's used. I'm not a big gun guy. Nothing against it. I just don't know much about it. I just know you Glocks and Glizzies. And that's about it. That's as far as my knowledge goes. But no, so how far we've come as far as like machinery and artillery and even tanks and, fucking jets compared to back then in World War One. From 1914 to 1918, shit. And how you mentioned World War II, even then, just that gap of, let's say, from 1914, from when that started, to fucking 1933, that almost 20-year gap, how far technology has come, from then to there, it blows my mind. There we go. See, that's when we entered the war.
Yeah. Well, and that movie's crazy, by the way. Anyway,
I need to watch it. I haven't watched it. I watch a lot of documentaries more.
It's basically a documentary at this point.
No, for sure.
True.
So the one that I've actually been watching lately was, I think, one of the BBC's British Columbia, that kind of shit. That World War One apocalypse on HBO Max. So I've been watching that lately. I've watched it a few times, but I've been watching it again, just rewatching it because the reason I find World War One so interesting, is that we were talking about trench warfare was a thing. You had to dig foxholes. Mm-hmm. That's in World War II, World War One because there was really no other chance. Like they were literally fighting in fields, having to, watch out for shrapnel, which is just, ricochets of fucking bullets, guns, shits that's just, the aftermath of what happens with that. And it can just burn your face and leave holes. And like, there's images of people that have lost their whole jaw and teeth and had like a prosthetic. They took it out and you could see all that shit. It's just crazy to me, like how far then, when tanks just became a thing, and how bulky they were, and they look intimidating, but once they found out you couldn't really move, oh, you're sitting duck,
right?
The shit out of you. And just as far as like, communication with people and the shit that you can do back then was just so like, I don't know how far combat goes today as far as hand-to-hand combat, but back then I'm pretty sure from what we see that that had to be a thing. You had to learn how to fight hand-to-hand and be a man, a soldier and shit like that. I'm pretty sure that's still today. But I'm just saying back then, like just the whole situation that kind of led up to World War One is just wild to me. Hell, like back then, kings of like Britain and like Europe was still like the hierarchy of everything, and their word goes and their word's everything. It wasn't really a democracy back then. It was more just, kings and queens that did everything. And that sounds funny to say, but that was actually a real thing, a real thought back then. But yeah, I don't know if you want to jump in and
No, yeah, like the hand-to-hand combat. Like, did they have bayonets in World War One? Like, I mean, that's a real thing. Like, you'd fight up close and personal when you get up close and personal. That movie, 1917, is absolutely crazy. It's, in my opinion, there's like now about 4 or 5 war movies that I literally think like. So Saving Private Ryan, in my opinion, is the #1 war movie, and specifically sort of like World War II, World War One-ish. Not really talking about like American Sniper or Apocalypse Now, or
like not modern war.
Yeah. But so like, I mean, you have Saving Private Ryan, and in my opinion is the super realistic, and it's the scope of that, obviously is crazy. But then the only other movie that was in that same paragraph to me was Fury. Have you seen that movie with Brad Pitt? So that's a movie about a tank. Like,
wait, I have seen that. Yes, that's the one tank that was like in the survival of everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know. Okay, I have seen that movie. Yes.
And that had a really good cast: Shia LaBeouf, Brad Pitt, boy from he was the Punisher, who was Shane in Walking Dead, John Bernthal. Anyway, so that movie blew me away. But then 1917 is a cinematic experience that is mind-boggling. That's the movie that it feels like one continuous shot all the way through. Like the logistics of how they shot it had to have been ridiculous. I mean, they prepped for years. Anyway, point being, so that movie is along the lines of what we're talking about. There's trench warfare. There's it just the feeling of, I mean, if you get shot, like, I don't want to say you're dead, but like, there's not a ton you can do with the conditions back then, with all the diseases and all the amount of casualties. Like, can you imagine you're just getting sprayed at, and or I mean, I guess they don't have the kind of weaponry they did in World War II.
No, they actually had machine guns. It wasn't the typical ones we see today. Those are the ones more like just in the ground and they just letting the bullets go. But
yeah,
they had horses. Like, horses were a way of transportation.
It's crazy to think that how we went from that, just how we upgraded from war to war, and soon we're not going to have any boots on the ground. We're going to have machines, and that's actually a really scary thought if you really delve into that. Having intelligent AI potentially. Who knows what's going to happen the next 100 years.
Another thing that that was actually new to World War One was chemical warfare. Gas, mustard gas, they had that kind of shit, and like having to learn trial and error just from people dying from it on how to protect yourself, because it attacks you right away. There's no way you can really survive it, and if you do, you have respiratory issues for the rest of your life. Like there's no way to reverse those effects.
Right.
Right when it hits you, it starts stinging your lungs, and you feel like you can't breathe. You can't breathe. Like it just starts attacking you right away. So chemical warfare was a big thing. They like you see the images where they had the full-on head mask. All they had in there was just a towel with certain chemicals to like prevent the gas from really messing with you. It's just crazy, like that kind of living or that kind of like figuring out at that moment in time was a thing. And then just all the casualties that have happened from it. And just the major players that just played a part in the whole situation. Like we as a country, and we didn't decide to get into it at all. We wanted to be so out of it because it was a European war. We just didn't want to, get involved with any of our allies. At least that's what Woodrow Wilson, was kind of going about. It's just crazy. It's a real wild thing for me to think of. And every time I think back about it, I'm like, man, like, and oh, I forgot this one point. Helmets. Helmets were a big thing. Like, it's crazy to think about that now, but then they had like 5 pounds, maybe even 6 of like this metal object on your head, because that's how they were trying to protect people from the shrapnel.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think like how that war was like the beginning of really trying to figure out more and more about how to go about this kind of shit. It's really wild to me, and it really blows my mind.
Did you ever watch the show Deadliest Warrior on Spike at all?
Have not, but if we want to get into it, I have been watching this YouTube channel. It's called Weird History, and it talks about, they just have random like facts. It's all different time periods of time. And that's another reason what kind of got me into watching more of World War I stuff, because it does talk about a huge part in that. They also go into like certain things like the Spanish flu, how it started here, which a lot of people don't know that it did start here in Kansas.
Oh, and interesting.
Soldiers here were, and they contracted it, and they sent them because that's in 1917 was when we got sent out. In 1918, it became bigger. So I think that too, I don't think we've ever talked about much, but that could probably been the first time biological warfare was a thing. And we just didn't know it at the time, but it could have been someone probably in their mind thought about it to send the troops there, but it seemed to here nor there. But my point of bringing is that too, because I know I have a feeling where you might go is like just the warriors and like how to survive and shit like that. And they show certain clips on like, to me, what blows my mind also, and sorry to go on a tangent.
No, keep going.
Like back in like the Revolutionary War, the French Revolutionary War, or even like the Civil War, like shit like that. Like, how do people like just the shit? Like there was guns, but you also had to like to stab motherfuckers. You had to like really combat, and like to load a shotgun or load whatever they had, like you only shoot one at a time. They had to reload back then.
Have you seen The Patriot, the movie with Mel Gibson?
Is that the one? No, I have
Yeah,
not.
Heath Ledger's in it. So he's a dude who gets caught up. I think it's the Civil War. No, it's the Revolutionary War. They're fighting the British or whatever, and it's like a one-off muskets, right? Like you only get one shot, and so he actually like loads like 7 rifles or whatever and puts them. They ambush like a battalion coming through the woods. And he's got like 2 young sons over here, and then he's got like rifle, and he'll shoot one. The son will shoot, and it'll take him a minute to reload. So he runs to the other gun and shoots one, and they're all loaded. And it's crazy to me that nobody, like in the Revolutionary War, said, "Hey, this is a stupid idea. All us lining up in a straight row and just going, dun, 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 and then we just, get shot." Like guerrilla warfare. Let's do something. Let's run in the serpentine pattern or something, right? Like I wouldn't just stand there. At the same time, if you don't stand there and fight, they just kill you anyway, probably. So like, or arrest you. But it just sounds so stupid to just line up and just shoot at each other. that's how people rule the world. But Deadliest Warrior, why I bring that up is because it was a show on Spike. They would take one like warrior from like a samurai versus a ninja, or Shaka Zulu versus Genghis Khan or something. Like they would take like a warrior from a, or a barbarian versus a Spartan soldier, and then they would do these cool tests like against like these mannequin human like bodies and stuff, where they would like test out their weapons and then like their defense abilities, and then they would do like this simulation in this computer program. It was a super cool show. And then they would do like this reenactment kind of, film, like short thing where like, they would have two warriors fight, and it would see like who would beat who.
Oh yeah.
And it's intriguing, just the world's history of how far we've come. And that show was hot. So like, can I get a Spartan emoji in the comments below if you've seen that show?
No, it's wild. I want to go back to that point about the world, how it's just changed, but bring it back to World War One. Also, that was the first time dogfights happened. Dogfights, for some of you that don't know, were the air fights in the air where we first had planes or to go out and had machinery and to go fight people in the air. Like that was the first war to experience that to my knowledge. And that just really blows my mind, because today we have jets. Then they were planes, literally just a propeller, three wings, called them planes, jets, whatever you want to call them at the time, and a machine gun that was timed perfectly whenever the propeller was rolling. And tell me that, like, how smart you do have to kind of be, and how much trial and error had to probably going through that to not the Wright brothers at all, but for having a machine gun on, like, to time with the propeller, just so you don't shoot your own self down. Like that to me, and at that time frame, that's just crazy. And then you're in the air literally with no real like top down. You're in the air harnessed in with a seatbelt. Like, and you're doing flips and stuff because you have to maneuver through like this shit. That's just wild to me.
Definitely, that would not be me. I can guarantee it. I would not survive in a dogfight like that. But yeah, no, that does kind of boggle my mind as well, thinking about all the logistics that go into that. And then all the things you have to calculate in the air. You have to focus on shooting somebody, lining up, where everything is like. And it's, what would you say is our like if war was a chessboard now, what's our pawns? Like what's our default soldier? Because I feel like jets or bombs is kind of just the go-to at this point, right? I mean, like,
I would assume, but that's how wars start if you think about it. Like,
right, like, because do we need real bodies on the ground to go door to door and kill the actual opposition, or do we just bomb important spots of the opposition? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I couldn't tell you. I just wouldn't know how to go about that. I mean, that's kind of far from my expertise of how to start a war.
Also, too, just what's going down. I just want to touch real quick on Israel and Palestine. Have you been keeping up with that at all?
I'm not, just kind of what I hear here and there.
Because I hoop with a couple peeps who go to the gym who have direct ties to that, and how like the world kind of slants their coverage of that entanglement, that war, in favor of maybe one side or the other, depending on what's in their best interest. Like you could have a bombing in Israel kill 10 Israelis, but then Israel actually bombed a mosque in Palestine and killed 40 innocent people. But like, you won't hear about that. You'll just hear like that Palestine bombed Israel and killed 10 people. But so having actual contact with people who are from there and who talk about it, like it's crazy what's happening over there. And the fact that we're here in America and it doesn't directly affect us necessarily, and we don't even hear about what's going on. I still think we have a long way to go as a human society, to what's right and wrong in this world, because I don't think any innocent person ever deserves to die. And when people are, you can just blame it on a holy war or revenge, retaliation. But if it doesn't affect us, it doesn't affect us. It's sort of like COVID. Some people swear like, oh yeah, it's not even a thing until you're kind of hit, until it hits someone that you personally know or it hits you. And so just because you don't see something directly doesn't mean it's not happening. Unfortunately, we're really closed-minded as a society that, it is what it is. If it doesn't affect you, it's sad.
Let's go back to what you just said, holy war.
Yeah.
What's wild to me about that, if you really look back at time, just throughout anything, really, every war that is started, at least from my opinion and kind of what I just see, is always started over religion or started over territory. There's really no other reason why to start a war. We're not a political podcast at all. We're just two dudes talking shit.
Historical, political.
Yeah. But let's look back at the medieval times. Hell, look back when Vikings were a thing. Church and I think if I'm saying right, church and state, all of like the hierarchy, like I said, kings and queens and shit like that, they were the ones that determined what was right, what was wrong. And then religion kind of became a thing, and that's why a lot of that stems with people fighting and having, always being one of fighting for the church or fighting for your kingdom or shit like that. It's always started because of religion, because of who says what goes is the kind of thing. I think it was King Henry, the 8th or 7th, one of those two. He was said to be really into the church as a kid, but as he got older and he had his reign and his hierarchy and stuff like that, he started saying, no, you have to believe me. What I say goes. I'm God. I'm the king. He's the first one to bring your majesty to be a real thing, because he thought my lord or your highness was way beneath him. He thought majesty was the holiest of holy things to say. So just looking back in time and history, everything that really fought is because of religion or it's because of territory. And this is just my opinion, the reason we're probably not hearing about it much, and if we do hear one side of everything, is because the other side, one of these sides are our alliance or our allies, and we're not going to go against that.
And that would be Israel.
And that's why you don't hear so much about certain things, but what we want to hear.
Well, and also too, how ridiculous does it sound to justify killing innocent people that it's religious holy war? Like, in what religion is it okay to kill people in the name of God, especially if they haven't killed any of y'all? It just.
I feel you, and I think that's always the conflict. Like, there's certain religions that believe, there's 100 virgins when you die, and they stand by that. And I'm not trying to knock no one's religion, but people stand by that.
Well, and
And then you have the Catholic Church. It says all this shit that people want to hear. But then again, you have fucking priests out here touching little kids. So what's to say is right, is wrong. There's only so much you can believe. But yeah, it's wild how people determine this kind of shit over religion and want to kill another person because they believe in something totally different than they do.
Right. And like you said, this isn't a political podcast or, anything super crazy, but, the more I think religion can be a healthy part of somebody's life. I think it can give someone a, sense of purpose.
Yeah. And we're not knocking no one that does. I'm just stating there's no reason to kill certain people if your religion shouldn't believe that killing these people are right.
Right.
So I think we're in the same boat as that.
Like 9/11 happening, those people who, hijacked the planes and, I'd like to think that they think wholeheartedly that they're doing something good, in the name of their God or Allah, or, but at the same time, if you talk to a Muslim person, just because some Muslims are terrorists doesn't mean all Muslims are terrorists. But in America, especially. It's funny. I'm going to turn this to baseball. Do you remember the Cubs? I know you're not much of a baseball guy, but do you remember the story of when the Cubs were like a game away from the World Series
And the
and
guy that
Bartman, oh boy, hit the
yeah,
ball? I just watched a documentary on that today, and people they need a scapegoat, and they want to blame him for their loss against the Marlins. But people don't realize that after that happened, they're still up 3-0, no big deal. But then their sure-handed shortstop drops a surefire double play ball, which would have gotten them out of the inning. But he drops it. And it's like a 1 in a million thing. The dude was a great fielder all season. And then the runs just pour on, and all of a sudden it's like 8-3. But everyone just wanted to point the finger at Bartman. And to me, our society, I had a link there to what I was just saying, but how our society is just so I want to say closed-minded at everything else. Like, so we don't even think about that shortstop missing that ball. We just think about Bartman knocking the ball out of Moises Alou's hands to lose them the game. But then as I'm watching, I'm thinking, man, momentum is a real thing. I guess this has nothing to do with what I was saying. Maybe if you like, I thought I had a link to the 9/11 thing, but I guess. But momentum is a real thing that's like unquantifiable. It's immeasurable because they said they felt like the air just sucked out of the arena or the ballpark, and that Wrigley Field is supposed to be super like, lovey, happy. Like the guys, like the crowds there actually, it's not like Philadelphia where people throw like screws at people in the football field and stuff. Like everyone's cheering and whatnot, but it was like the darkest hour of that day in Wrigley Field, and I really thought I had a connection, but I guess I didn't. But that's what we do here. We're chopping wood.
Keep on chopping.
I just guess I really wanted to talk about that because I just watched it.
I feel you. but yeah, man, I think we went on kind of a tangent on everything.
100%.
But no, back to World War One real quick. And how far medicine came off that. Like, I was also, like I said, watching some things about like the Revolutionary War and Civil War, and even fucking back in the French Revolutionary War, shit like that. Like when something happened, when you got hurt or something, like you got stabbed up, a fucking bullet wound, fucking, they're chopping that off. Like there was an image of a guy of like the doctor with a saw in his hand, and people just surround the guy that's about to get his whole leg amputated with a saw. It's crazy. Like today, I'm not saying that probably does still happen, and it probably does. I don't know, but I know for a fact medicine and surgery out in the field has definitely came a long way, and just shit like that. I couldn't imagine, right then and there they're gonna give you some whiskey just so you can get drunk enough to fucking chop your arm off and then literally hacksaw it off. Like that's crazy to me. Like that was a thing literally 100 years ago, maybe 105 years ago. That was a thing that they had to do in the war if they wanted to keep you alive and not bleed out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, we're living in a really great time if you look at things like that. Like having the ability to just not have to cut your limb off when you get a little nick or bruise. Yeah, it's it kind of actually, sometimes I think about how little far we are removed from like World War II and even the racism, the racial issues in our country. Like the Martin Luther King days and stuff are like our parents' era.
50, 60 years ago. Like that wasn't that long ago. Like that's what also fucking blows my mind too. Like this shit wasn't that long ago. Like 100 years seemed like a long fucking time.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. Like from the year I was born, 91, World War I ended 50 years ago prior to that.
Right.
That time. World War II, I'm sorry. Ended
World War II.
Prior to that. Like that's just crazy. So a lot of this shit is still fairly new. Like the Holocaust is not even 100 years old yet. Like there's still maybe a few survivors from then. And it's just wild to me, like how big of an issue, like I'm not issue, big of a historical situation that was. And for us to live in a time now, and I was thinking about this a while ago, like for us to live in a time now where we're not drafted,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of hard for me to believe that I'm gonna live through a lifetime where I don't see another draft happening. And the reason I say that, I mean, I think our military has gotten a lot. I mean, I don't know too much, but from back then, from World War I, we had to draft people. Even in Vietnam, there had to be a draft. Like people had to get drafted to go fight. Today, maybe because wars are now won cyberly and more won, you know, behind closed doors that maybe we don't know of. Maybe there has to be these certain things that they say they're sending a message. Um, I don't know. I'm just a guy speaking out his ass right now, but it's just crazy to me like that I feel like we will see a draft sometime in my lifetime. I won't be a part of it. I don't think that I'm gonna be old enough to be drafted, unless shit just got that hectic. They just want every man out there. But I just don't see that me getting drafted, but I do see a draft happening. Do I think it'd be World War III? Maybe not, but I do see something along those lines. It's just hard for me to believe that because we're only, like I said, we're only 100 years removed from that World War One.
I personally don't think we're gonna have a draft in our lifetime.
We say that, but like I said, the last draft that happened was in the 60s with Vietnam. That's not that long ago.
It's not.
Just to believe that that didn't happen. Over time, throughout years, people had to get drafted to go fight.
But I think that's more so a product of where we were at technologically, where you needed like to win like a war like that or whatever, you needed boots on the ground. I think the Vietnam War was ridiculous. The logistics.
Yeah, that was definitely that. Like, if you really look into that,
oh my goodness, like it's awful.
No, yeah, like I get it. That was more of a conflict within North and South Korea, Vietnam, and like whatever their issues were. And you know, I get it. We were trying to help because it did seem like the bigger bully was picking on the younger, you know, the weak.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I still don't fully know the ins and outs. I try to do as much research as I could on it. I still couldn't really fully figure it out. But you know, it is what it is with that.
Well, and I feel like we won't have a draft because I think if anything, we're moving even further into the age of drones. And I mean, manpower is always, I guess, technically going to be a necessity, but when you can have a person command a drone to drop a bomb on something, then I don't think it, you know, takes as much actual manpower, like boots on the ground. And also, too, I think a World War III situation would be more of like a nuclear threat with a North Korea or someone who actually does use a nuclear bomb, and then all hell might break loose. I hope that never happens. But yeah, I don't know. I think if anything, like I think we're going more towards drones and AI units than anything. And it's crazy to think. I think in the next 20, maybe 35 years, we're gonna have some tech that well, I know we already have tech that like we can't even fathom. Like they're not gonna tell us about that. Like I've seen shows where they have like invisible tanks.
Oh yeah,
Can
like
you
that,
imagine? Like
yeah, like
you roll up and
crazy.
there's like 5 invisible tanks against like, you know, 80 soldiers. Like, so it's, I don't know, it's gonna be mind-boggling. I think America, so like you said, how we don't know the specifics, but how I think it was I started watching the Newsroom on HBO Max, and Jeff Daniels' character at the very beginning, opening monologue, basically starts saying why America is not the #1 country in the world. I know it's a little bit old now, but he was basically saying how we're not #1 in anything in the world except like how much money we put in our defense systems. So yeah, we have the most money in our military basically when we're not. I mean, it's just kind of reassurance, and I guess I wouldn't not put money into it, but I can't really fathom what we have at our disposal with all the trillions of dollars we put into our army over the last 30 years. Like, you know, and if you believe in aliens, Area 51, we're reverse engineering crazy shit. So who knows what we have, low key.
No word. It's funny. Like you bring up, the only reason, like I said, I just see there being a draft just because history's taught me that there's going to be a draft. I would hope not, because that means either my kids or grandkids would have to get drafted.
Right.
I want to live in a time where that I would see that. I'm just saying, just like I said, just from what history's kind of taught us, it's been an occurring thing. Hopefully not. But to add on to the point of like more men, like you said, more boots on the field or whatever. Now this has nothing to really do with it, but watching Resident Evil, how they're trying to create bioweapons. Also, if you watch the last, I want to say maybe 2 Jurassic Worlds, the last 2 of them, how they were trying to train raptors and trying to make the crazy T-Rex and like the 2, and then the other raptor in the second one, more of a weapon opposed to just being a creature. I mean, I could, excuse me for stuttering, but like, I'm a firm believer in like all writing, even fiction, has some truth to it. I'm not saying there's dinosaurs, but I'm saying that there could be possibly something that we don't know about that's being worked on trying to get things to go and hunt and kill the enemy instead of, using people and casualties and having more casualties be a thing. I don't know if that's true, but if we're going to go like talk Area 51 talk, I don't see that. I could see that being a thing. I mean, I don't see why not. It sounds more logical to have a creature, and go attack the enemy and then stop at someone's command. But then how far can that go until that creature says, fuck this, I realize I'm stronger and smarter than you, I'm going to attack you, and you. You know what I'm saying?
And that's, instead of replace the word creature with AI or drone or robot or Terminator, like that's the direction we're heading. And Bob Lazar, how familiar are you with my man Bob Lazar?
Robert? I don't know Bob.
Okay, so look up Bob Lazar. He's the whistleblower of Area 51. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. Never said anything for financial gain. If anything, he claims he came out to expose the government and what they've been doing there, which was a long time ago. He came out because he was in fear for his life. And by getting his story out there, if something happened to him, people would know that it's, foul play. Point being, he says he worked at Area 51 and tried to reverse engineer extraterrestrial crafts. And I would suggest watching the Joe Rogan podcast about Bob Lazar, because he's super open-minded, yet skeptical, yet intrigued by aliens and all that kind of stuff.
We sending out all these plugs.
Yeah, well, hopefully Joe Rogan will plug us. But so yeah, go check that out with Bob Lazar, because it's a crazy interesting spot, because I've also heard Joe Rogan talking to other people, and we can get deeper into aliens on the next pod or something, but he was telling a dude, he's like, well, yeah, Bob Lazar said this, and the guy's like, well, I think Bob Lazar's full of shit, to be honest. And Joe Rogan's like, but he's been consistent in everything he said for the last like 30 years. His story's never changed, and again, there's no financial gain or anything. And the dude's like, well, he's trying to poke holes in his story, and Joe Rogan's like, well, he has like answers for that. And then he's like, well, he didn't go to school at MIT or whatever, there's no record of him being there. And then Joe Rogan says, well, I'll tell you off the podcast, but there's a reason why he wasn't in the records at MIT, because what he was doing at Area 51, there were some experiments and whatnot that were like sinister, like they were not good, like against the Geneva Convention kind of a thing. And so if that's true, obviously the government, let's just run with that. The government would say, yeah, we don't want that exposed, like some black market kind of experimental shit, like they're doing sci-fi weapons on animals or something. And they made it sound like it was illegal and kind of against human rights. And so, I mean, you could say, what was the thing that Charles Manson was, MK Ultra? Have you delved into MK Ultra with like the psychedelics and shit? Like the government has tried to control our brains and have gone to certain lengths to provide, experiments and stuff like that. Again, this is maybe for another pod. Me and my boy Arhanus, shout to Chainer if you're this deep in the podcast. We talk about this all the time. There's some government shit that's shady going on, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's illegal, dark experiments, just like Hitler and the Nazis did in World War II.
That's what I was about to say.
That happened.
Let's just get into the shits. They were taking human bodies and putting them together.
Yeah.
They were literally they took twins apart, attached two twins, reattached them. Like they did this kind of shit. Hell, we want to go back even further. Leonardo da Vinci, like,
was he doing crazy shit?
He would go and get bodies, like dead bodies, and chop them up and try to put different bones and stuff together and just see how it would react, even though it was dead limbs, he would like put them sew them up and see how they would move and shit like that. Like, so and he wrote this in his books. Like, even though it's still kind of hard, even though today it's still hard to really figure out some of his writings, just because how cryptic he wrote. It's not far-fetched to me to understand that. Hell, we might get a lot of backlash from that. Our government, does experiments on us openly. We just don't see it. Like the Tuskegee experiment was a thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? For African Americans, that was a real thing. That's why a lot of, at least, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of African Americans do not want to take any vaccines because of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not far-fetched for our government or any government to do any kind of testing on people, but like willingly or unwillingly, like without people, or like in front of us, and make it seem something totally different. So I understand, you know what I'm saying? Like I believe in this shit. I do believe that there are tests done on us that we just don't see sometimes.
Yeah, it's scary to think about, but at the same time, it'd be naive to not at least address it and like keep an open mind about it. Again, I'm kind of skeptical by nature. I think it's smart to kind of not just believe anything you hear, but at the same time, even if something gets like a little crazy or abnormal, it would be, naive to just dismiss something or claims that are just that doesn't fit my narrative or that doesn't make sense, because a lot of things don't make sense. Skinwalker Ranch, another kind of anomaly place that a lot of crazy shits happen. And I think there's a huge, I'm a big sci-fi fan. This, people who know me know this. I'm extremely intrigued by aliens and stuff, and UFOs right now are a hot topic, especially that the government has come out and has stated that, yeah, there are UFOs. Now, does that mean it's extraterrestrial? No. But I think it's just, it's crazy to just think about what the government is keeping from us and what they, someone wrote Men in Black, and like you said, I mean, there's got to be some grain of truth, because the stories of people encountering UFOs, dudes in suits showed up. That's what.
Do we want to get into this, or we want to say this for a new pod? Because we could go there.
Let's save this for the next pod. We'll end it here, and then we'll delve into this next time, because there's a lot to say.
Well, I still kind of want to talk a little bit more, not about the alien stuff, but AI.
Okay, yeah.
You've seen the two supercomputers, right? Or you heard about the two supercomputers that they programmed to talk to each other?
No.
Yeah, so they were talking to each other. English. Then they started overriding their system, and they came up with their own language.
I've not heard about this.
Language that they could possibly learn, and came up with their own language and started. The people that developed this, the scientists that developed it, couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. They couldn't understand what they were saying no more. So they had to really cut the plug on the two computers.
Do you have any, what's the citation page at the end? Do you have any resources so I can look this up? Or?
We should probably definitely put that up. Don't know what it is, but I do recall that happened. And it might not even be up no more. For me to even, because like how you said, how his MIT is not in his records no more.
Right.
Like, it's not far-fetched for these things to happen. Like, you've seen the droid that can open the door, right? The dog droid with the one arm.
Yeah.
It opens the door. Like, how does it know to open the door? Like, how does the machine, and they're not controlling it with the computer, maybe they are, but that dog is walking, and it clearly reaches for the door handle, turns the knob, and closes it behind it. Like, how does it know? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think AI is an intriguing yet extremely scary road to go down, in
do you
my
ever think
opinion.
we are?
Do you think what?
Do you think we are? Do you think what if we're just too, we're a simulation of something? Our real self is in like some lab or something, and we're just meant to believe this is all real. Like we're meant to believe pain is pain. When we bleed, we're meant to believe that looks like blood. I'm just saying, I'm just kind of like going on a tangent now, but like, do you
I
think
mean, are we in a matrix like state basically?
yeah,
I don't know about that, but for example, like I do see us leaning more towards escaping reality. And I think like augmented reality or virtual reality, um, holograms, all that's going to be a forefront, a staple of like moving forward, I think in the next 30, 50 years. But I think we'll get to a point where it's sort of, have you seen Ready Player One at all? Steven Spielberg directed movie. I really enjoy it. But we might get to a point where we're trying to play a video game in virtual reality other than be in our real lives.
like
And
like the Fairly Odd Parents one, where Timmy has like his own. He asks for a video game and he's in the game.
yeah, sort of like that. But then like Black Mirror has some episodes where like you can just put these things and you would completely escape into your game, right? Like into your world. And so you're not just playing the game, you're in the game. You are the game.
Right.
And I think we are probably a ways away from going that. And I think do you remember how Pokemon Go like completely swept the nation for like a summer? And when something gets super hot, super popular, you know, it's like herd mentality. People just, oh, I want in, I want in, I want in. And so I think if like Elon Musk or someone, once we get to a point where someone says, hey, this virtual reality shit is crazy, like you know, it'll catch storm. And I think it'll be almost like a second life. You'll want to be in the game more so than you'll want to be in person. And like in Ready Player One, you can put on the suit that you feel things. So if someone hits you in the arm, you feel that impact. You feel,
Right.
you know, a kick to the groin. Unfortunately, that would hurt. But so
Imagine a shot, like a bullet shot.
yeah, imagine if you had to feel yourself getting killed and then you come out of it like Avatar sort of thing. You can actually
That's wild, and that's just.
I think we're going in that direction. I don't know.
I would hope not, for the sake of people having some security still. But then again, that's a whole different topic.
Well, and I know some people who, you know, don't have a Facebook still. So I don't know if the whole world will ever get encompassed. I know the whole world won't, because there's still tribes and shit on the world that have no electricity. Like the dude who got
it's
killed.
funny. During this whole like pandemic thing, I made this. I think it's an ongoing joke with certain people, but there's a man somewhere in the world, in the woods, that has no idea there's a pandemic, and he's probably the healthiest person in the world, and he just doesn't know what's going on because he has no social media, he has no like real electricity or anything like that. He's just a wilderman, decided one day in his lifetime to go live in the woods, and he's just making it like that, to be a lumberjack or something.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I'm saying?
a real shit. I think Jared Leto was in the woods on like some retreat for like a month when the pandemic hit. So Jared Leto, an Oscar winning actor, had no idea the world was like shutting down for like a month. And then when he gets out of the retreat, he's like, oh shit, like I can't fly places. You know what I mean? So to an extreme of that, I can imagine somebody like, you know, in another country or somewhere, not even, you know, if you don't have internet, you don't know that what's happening in Israel, or you don't know.
You don't know shit at all, and that could be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, ignorance is bliss.
Crazy shit that goes on. You know what I'm saying?
Ignorance is bliss for sure. Yeah. I guess one final note is if you, I think I was just about to say, if you don't have technology, like I think some people kind of get a little bit overblown on the apocalypse is happening because look at the earthquake here or the tornado here, but we have literally 24-hour surveillance of the world now, pretty much. And so when you have more eyes on something, it's sort of like in the NBA, like, you know, a player gets mad at a coach or something and it's, you know, front page news that night. Or in the NFL, there's a trade that happens before the player even knows. It's because you have people lingering and trying to get that information out as quick as possible. The NBA players in the 90s, 80s, those motherfuckers would just smoke and punch and hook and do all kinds of, they'd go to Vegas and get into nonsense, and no one would even know about it outside of the spot. So I think it's sort of like the movie The Circle. Again, I'm referencing a lot of movies. Go check out The Circle with Tom Hanks, Emma Watson.
Doing all this plugging. We some monies.
Yeah, no, but that's a good movie too. But it talks about privacy. It's about just the social, virtual sociality, and it's kind of it's like it with anything. It could get dangerous when it gets to a point of obsession that becomes destructive. So be careful out there, all you users on Instagram and Facebook. Cover your webcams. Welcome to my PSA, or thank you for attending.
Oh shit.
But yeah, a lot to unpack.
Nice, informative, tangent ass pod that we had.
Yeah, World War One, drones,
dude, Revolutionary War, fucking
Hitler.
We could
Hitler.
I think we gotta watch out for that topic.
yeah. I'll bleep that out. But yeah, no, this was a good episode. I hope you guys will enjoy our next one. I think it sounds like we're going to delve deeper into aliens. Are they real? Are they not? I think they are. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I mean,
go ahead. Tell us, go ahead and comment, like, subscribe. Tell us what y'all want us to talk about, but it don't really even matter.
Leave a note in the comments. What do you guys want us to talk about? Like Mag just said, we don't care. We don't. Like, what is Stephen A. Smith? We don't care. But at least hopefully you guys enjoy us chopping some wood and
keep on chopping.
Keep on chopping. Until next time, fellas and gals.
Later, y'all.